Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome in this cold winter to all of our guests. We are back with one more episode of this popular investor education and awareness initiative of Aditya Birla Mutual Fund in association with Outlook Money. I am Vishwa, and it is great to be back as your host. We all know that the primary objective of investing is to create wealth over the long term. And while there are a large number of financial instruments to choose from to create that wealth, mutual funds have attracted a lot of interest in the last few years. The reason is perhaps that mutual funds offer a diverse set of options for people with different risk appetites and risk profiles. Mutual funds have also proved a useful instrument for those who want to gain from investing in the stock market but have limited knowledge about how these stock markets function. But most importantly, mutual funds seem to have won the trust of investors as a relatively safer investment, which offers better returns than traditional investment avenues like FDs and PPFs. So today, to help our viewers understand everything they need to know about creating wealth through investing in mutual funds, we have with us two popular guests who have vast experience and expertise on this subject. They are of the view that wealth creation is all about increasing the purchasing power to be able to improve the standard of living. And while this is a wonderful motivator, many are unaware of how to create wealth, or they may have some false notions about it. In this session, they would tell us all the basic fundamentals of wealth creation through mutual funds, our theme for today's webinar. Our first guest is Mr. K.S. Rao, Head Investor Education and Distribution Development, Aditya Birla Sun Life Asset Management Company Limited. Mr. Rao, an alumnus of IIM Calcutta, has spent over 2 decades in mutual fund industry, and in his current role, he leads his organization's effort towards investor education. He has been with us since the beginning of this webinar, and we are pleased to welcome him back. We are also joined with Mr. Amit Trivedi, author, speaker, trainer, and blogger with over 26 years of professional experience in capital markets. As a trainer, he has trained over 83,000 participants through almost 1,300 workshops across 130 different locations across the country. He has also been with us throughout this journey of webinar series, and we are pleased to welcome him back to our show. So let's
Thank you.
Yes, you welcome, sir. Welcome to both of you. Let's get straight into it. My first question is for Mr. Rao. Mr. Rao, when we talk about wealth creation, what does it mean exactly for our viewers? How should they understand what it is all about?
Yeah, thank you, Vishal. Thanks to Outlook Money and welcome you all. Indeed, it's great to connect at the end of the year. 2020 is just getting ended, and maybe we are looking at 2021 with a different approach. And talking about the wealth creation at this point, it makes a lot of sense. Thanks, Vishal, for the wonderful topic of the wealth creation. It's wealth is like wealth. It's having enough, but you don't have to worry about the having enough. That's the way you have wealth. We call about health is wealth, right? Similarly, the financial wealth is for our better life. It is typically creating wealth is something like teaching your child how to ride a bicycle, and you will be taking care of your child till some time where he gets a balance of it, and after that he runs on his own and he drives his bicycle on his own. And wealth is something like that. You can put your money to work. Initially, you need to take care, and after that, that money makes money, and you create a wealth for it. And there could be a multiple ways of wealth. Today we talk about the financial wealth today here, but there could be a social wealth, there could be a spiritual wealth, there is a physical wealth, and the biggest wealth for all of us is the time wealth. You need to invest your time and invest in your time. And I look at, I think, wealth creation in this context is having enough money to meet my responsibilities during my life. I never need to worry about the money. That's what wealth means for me.
Right. And when we talk about wealth, of course, we talk about time and time we put in to create that wealth. So yeah, I get that, how time is crucial, not only from the perspective of time as wealth, but also the time that you need to create that wealth. My next question is for Mr. Trivedi. Mr. Trivedi, since we are talking about wealth creation, can you tell us, how can one start on this journey of creating wealth? How can one create wealth? Are there any ingredients that one needs through which they can create that wealth over a long term?
Yeah, thanks, Vishal, and thanks, Mr. Rao, for this wonderful initiative by Aditya Birla Sun Life Mutual Fund and along with Outlook Money. So, Vishal, coming to a question, first of all, as Mr. Rao was mentioning, wealth is about improvement in lifestyle. So, being able to meet the life's expenses. And from that perspective, there are, if I were to, put it in some process or steps, there are some broad steps that one can consider to create wealth. The first step is spend less than what you are earning. Now, the earning can come from the work that one is doing. It could be a salary income or business income, professional fees, etc. on one hand. Second is the income generated by the investments. Now, combine this income, and if you are able to spend less than what you are earning, then on a regular basis, you are able to save something. And I wanted to just highlight on this income part, because a lot of times people think that when you say spend less than what you earn, you are only talking about the working class. No, I'm not only talking about the working class. Even retired people can, because they are earning out of their investments, they can also save on a regular basis. So spend less than what you are earning is step number one. Step number two is then provide for various contingencies, emergencies, etc., etc. And for that, we earlier also in a few episodes, webinars, we've discussed that there is a need for an emergency fund or contingency fund, as well as there is need for buying insurance policies. Once you've taken care of that, then comes the question of providing for near-term, short-term, and medium-term expenses or goals. The third step is whatever amount is saved on a regular basis, that amount has to be invested in a diversified portfolio of good quality investments. Now, each of these words is very, very critical. A diversified portfolio and good quality investments. So both are required. Next, the fourth step is something that both Mr. Rao and you just mentioned before you came to me with this question. Give your investments time, and that time allows the process of compounding to help in accumulation of wealth. And the simple advice that a lot of experts give to investors is, please do not interrupt the process of compounding.
Right. Thank you for this wonderful answer. Power of compounding, as we say, is the sure shot formula to create wealth. And yeah, it's useful in today's world. But when we talk about today's world, I want to ask Mr. Rao, today we have high rates of inflation. The cost of living is high. We want all the luxuries in life. And in this kind of a situation, where the spending is also associated with a better living standard. So in this kind of a scenario, how important is wealth creation for an individual in today's world, not only to survive but to also thrive?
Yeah, thanks, Vishal, for this question. And I'll start where Amit has ended. It's money is most important thing for us, but of course it's not everything. But without money, we can't get anything. That's where the need of the wealth creation. And further, what Amit, when he said spend less than what you earn, there are normally for wealth creation, I feel there are 5 commandments one need to have. And why you need to, the importance of creating is you need to create wealth. There is no other choice for us, because you need to live your better life, and you have a limited means and you have unlimited wants. How you can identify that? And when I look at these 5 commandments, where Amit ji has already spoken about, is you keep your financial goals. I mean, that's the first thing is you should have a goal. I mean, otherwise you end, as you rightly said, you spend more than what you have if you are not having goals, because you feel a lot of surplus in your bank account and you end up spending on that. And second is try to earn as much as you can, earn more, whether you are in a profile or in the business, how you can make more of your qualifications, more of your earnings, you can increase you more. Then the save first and spend later, as Amit ji said. And third one is have an action plan. What is that I need to create, how I need to create my wealth. And allocation is the key. I mean, again, Amit was forcing, Amit ji was mentioning on this. And the living frugally, like, if I'm spending everything, it's any amount of wealth is not sufficient for you. You need to live frugal and have a healthy and wealthy habits. I'll go a little further. I mean, I was reading this book on Chanakya and wealth creation some time back. Normally in Indian context, we speak about 3 stages of wealth, and Chanakya talks about the 4 stages of wealth. Imagine Chanakya spoke this 2,400 years before, and he said the first stage of the wealth creation is identification of wealth. Wealth identification is Like for example, you and me are working, I work for Aditya Birla, you work for Outlook Money. For us, identification of wealth, the first one could come from the salary. Second one can come from our investments little later. Third one can come from our like, inheritance, whatever we got, wealth identification. Second one, once you identify how you manage your wealth, like the Amit was mentioning earlier, how you can put for your goals and how you need to look at that way. And it's like, you manage wealth, that's the wealth creation. And the wealth creation alone is not sufficient. Like if we are having, during our sessions in the month of April and May, we were discussing about our wealth protection. It's markets were dwindling and it is going down, how I can protect myself. And you need to protect your wealth. And you need to protect your wealth not only from the volatility, but you need to protect your wealth from your own anxieties. And we undergo so much of anxiety at that point of time. How you can protect up from that anxiety. And wealth you can protect from contingencies. I think I know Amit again always says how you can have your contingency fund, how you can prepare. And the last but not the least for the wealth creation, the wealth protection part is, you need to protect yourself from the inflation. That's the last one I can look at. And when you go for the fourth stage of the wealth is your wealth distribution. How you give, why you give, and whom you want to give, how you want to share your wealth. This is broadly comes under importance of the wealth creation and why you need to create wealth and how you can plan. And I believe financial education is the key for the wealth creation. And I keep always telling people alphabets ABC of the financial literacy is just you need to know only 3 letters. That is DIP. That is dip. Take a dip in the financial education. The D is a delayed gratification. I is an impact of inflation. P is power of compounding. If you understand these 3 letters, I think you are on the path to wealth creation with a safe grounding.
Thank you, Mr. Rao. As you said, one should have a a proper plan for creating wealth. And when we talk about, having a plan, of course, there are different tools through which one can create wealth. But mutual funds are increasingly becoming a part of that plan for wealth creation in today's time. So my next question is for Mr. Trivedi. Mr. Trivedi, mutual funds are something which everyone agrees in today's time as one of the most effective tools to create long-term wealth. Can you please elaborate, how it is so?
Yeah, Vishal, thanks for this question. In fact, just taking a leaf from what Mr. Rao was just mentioning, wealth has a lot to do with purchasing power. So increase in wealth means that your purchasing power should go up. If the purchasing power goes down, then there's an erosion in wealth. And from that perspective, we need to select an asset category or investment category which has the potential to beat inflation or potential to generate returns which are higher than the increase in prices. If that happens, then the purchasing power goes up. And among all the various asset classes, equity or stocks have proven time and again that they possess this power to beat inflation. Now, problem comes when a proper portfolio is not constructed using an asset category that has the potential to beat inflation. And for that purpose, 2 things are important. One, it has to be a portfolio of carefully chosen stocks, well-researched stocks. And number 2, the portfolio must be properly diversified. And these 2 things automatically come in an equity mutual fund where there is a diversified portfolio by regulation. The regulator has put certain norms for the purpose of diversification within a mutual fund portfolio. And there is a fund management team whose job, full-time job rather, let me emphasize on that, is to research stocks and build a portfolio in line with that. And from that point of view, a diversified portfolio of carefully chosen stocks, over a period of time, if you stay invested, helps you create wealth. Add to that another point, which is actually a benefit that most salaried individuals have. They earn on a monthly basis, and then because of that, they are able to save on a monthly basis. Now, if this monthly saving is invested in an equity mutual fund through an investment process known as SIP, Systematic Investment Plan, then you also get the benefit of Rupee cost averaging, which means at higher NAVs, you buy fewer units, but at lower NAVs, you end up buying more. And cheaper when you buy more, obviously, it also adds to the process of wealth creation. So from that point of view, SIP in a diversified equity mutual fund is one way. Now, suppose somebody doesn't have a regular saving, then also investing lump sum and stay invested for long period, can help create wealth big time.
Right. And since you mentioned, how equities have this tendency to beat inflation, but we have a related question from one of the audience. Mr. Pradeep Mishra from Delhi is asking, can I invest in mutual funds if I don't want to invest in the share market?
Oh yes, there are multiple categories within mutual funds, and within Indian mutual fund industry, there are broadly 3 asset categories where you can take exposure: equity, debt, and gold. So even if you want to avoid equity, there are debt mutual funds and there are gold mutual funds that you can benefit from. However, let's understand very clearly that your purpose of investing has to be primary, and based on that you select what you want to get into it. Don't shy away from equity simply because it is a risky or perceived to be risky investment avenue. Understand and then take a call whether you want to invest in equity or not. Within debt also, there are I would bifurcate between liquid funds and debt funds. Liquid funds are for immediate and short-term requirements, and debt funds are for short and medium-term and sometimes even long-term requirements. So there are multiple options even within mutual funds. You can choose from any.
Right, absolutely. Even when it comes to mutual funds, there is a lot of choices. There are equity funds, debt funds, hybrid funds, and as you have rightly, talked about a few of them. So, Mr. Rao, like Mr. Amit said, Mr. Trivedi said, there are different kinds of mutual funds, and there is a lot of choices for different investors. There are equity funds, there are debt funds, hybrid funds. I want to ask you, since you come from a mutual fund company, so you would be in a better position to explain to our viewers what are the different kinds of funds, how are they different from each other, and how should one choose between them?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question, Vishal. And the mutual funds, there is one difficulty in the mutual funds people feel is you have many of the choices. You are right. We have multiples, and thanks to the regulator last year, it is a simplified in a very better way. Categorization has happened in just 6 categories, and and mutual funds for you. I'll tell you from the duration of your investing. For example, from here to my home to market, if I go here, I use a vehicle called a bicycle, or I can use my 2-wheeler. And if I go to my office, I use car. And if I come to your Delhi office, I have to take a flight. Means, my different destinations, I'm using the different vehicles. Likewise, mutual funds are like, different vehicles for you to reach your different destinations. You have a very short-term goal. You have a contingency fund. You can put your money into the liquid fund. And, or you have something of a 3 years, like, 3 years later, you want to holiday, or you want to build a house. This is an advance money. You are procuring it for it. Then you can put your money in the short-term debt fund. You are planning for your children education or children marriage, then you have a balanced funds, hybrid funds or equity funds, depending on the duration. If you have a 5 years money, you come to the hybrid fund. If you have 10 years money, you come to the equity funds. Or you have your retirement you want to plan. There's a long term, like when I'm coming to Delhi, I'm taking a flight. There is a very long term journey. Then I'm using a different tool, either my equity funds, or if I'm within the equity, I can go a little bit of depending on my ability to take the risk. My allocation can happen to the thematic funds, or it could be a small cap fund, or it could be a mid cap fund. Means choose depending on your time horizon, depending on your financial goal, choose a mutual fund scheme accordingly. Earlier, Amitji was mentioning about SIP. Even one SIP for one goal makes a lot of difference. Your child education, one SIP, your children marriage, one SIP, for your retirement plan, you can have another SIP. Then various goals can have a various SIPs. And today is the content and the context we are talking about wealth creation and mutual funds. Equity is a great asset class to be in the mutual fund, wealth creation, and the equity funds are the great asset class to be there because you have an inherent diversification. Most of us won't create wealth because either we are overexposed, and when market tanks, our money is going away, and when market is going up, we feel we are not participated. And that's where asset allocation is a mantra, and mutual funds enables an ease of asset allocation. And goal-based investments, it's the easy with the mutual funds. And mutual funds provide you to the liquidity and flexibility whenever you want to invest. And mutual funds are also most tax efficient. And when you are investing your money, if you are making the tax efficiency, that extra return which you are creating can add to your wealth creation at a later stage in a bigger way. I think probably I would have extended your question a little more, because mutual funds are close to my heart, and mutual funds are mutual friends to people to accomplish their financial goals, as well as to create a wealth for themselves and to the next generation too.
Thank you so much for this, elaborate and a wonderful answer. Since you talked about SIPs, I want to ask Mr. Trivedi, SIPs, are kind of a powerful tool to accumulate long-term wealth. So can you tell our viewers how they can use their SIPs and how they compare to other forms of investing like lump sum investing, and how SIPs can work in your favor, when you should go for SIPs and when you should go for lump sum. So if you can just elaborate a little on that.
Perfect. So fantastic question. And before I answer your question, let me just put a clarification here, because in my interaction with a lot of people, I have realized that there are a few myths prevailing in the market about SIP. So the first myth that I would like to bust is SIP is a process and not a product. It is a way of investing in mutual funds. So to that extent, it's better to compare, like in your question also, you beautifully mentioned, compare SIP with lump sum investing. It is not SIP versus mutual fund or SIP versus some other instrument. SIP is a way to get into an instrument. So that's the one. The advantage, a big advantage that an SIP offers to a large number of people, especially those who are earning on a regular basis, is that the earning generates savings on a monthly basis, and that monthly savings can be automatically and seamlessly invested in a vehicle of one's choice. So be it equity mutual funds or debt mutual funds, liquid mutual funds, gold mutual funds, whatever category of mutual fund that you choose, the SIP can be initiated. And the monthly saving which comes in the bank, you do not have to take a decision on a monthly basis as to now what should I do. A lot of times, if one has to take that decision on a monthly basis, then the inertia sets in and the money remains idle in bank and earns nothing. Instead of that, this is a process which automates the investment. So to that extent, SIP offers a very, very powerful way of channelizing the investments. The other benefit that SIP offers is beautifully captured in that old proverb, which says little drops of water make the mighty ocean. Those small monthly investments over a period of time, they accumulate to a significantly large sum, not only like the drops making an ocean, but in this case, the power of compounding also starts working. So each drop of the ocean also generates another drop, and that the return generated on those investments and the return generated on that return over a period of time, then there's an exponential upside movement over a period of time. So that's the other benefit. The SIP, as I just some time back mentioned, also benefits from what is popularly known in the industry as rupee cost averaging, where because a fixed amount is invested every month and the NAV keeps going up and down, the number of units that one buys is the amount invested divided by the NAV. So if the amount invested remains fixed, if the NAV is high, you get less number of units, but when the NAV is low, you get more number of units. So when it is cheaper, you buy more, and that also brings down the average purchase price. That also, obviously, when the purchase price is lower, that's the benefit that nobody needs to be reminded of. Now, this is where SIP comes in as a beautiful package. Accumulation, power of compounding, rupee cost averaging, and automation of the investment process. Whoever is able to generate regular savings because one has regular income should ideally prefer the SIP as a way of investing. However, if in case you do not have a regular saving, then there is no question one can keep parking money in a liquid fund on a regular basis, and from that one can do what is known as systematic transfer plan. The difference between SIP and STP is SIP, the money moves from your bank account to a mutual fund, whatever fund one has chosen. In case of STP, it moves from a liquid fund into another fund. If you get any lump sum receipt on account of various things, let's say one has sold a large asset or property, or one has inherited a large amount, or there is a bonus or something of that sort, and at that time also lump sum may be preferable, but otherwise for a very large number of investors, SIP is the way to invest.
Right. Mr. Rao also mentioned, having different SIPs for different goals. So in that context, I have a follow-up question. How important is it to have, clear financial goals when it comes to wealth creation, whether it is through SIP route, lump sum route, through mutual funds or otherwise also, but how important it is to have clear financial goals when it comes to wealth creation?
So sorry, Rao sir, you want to go ahead?
No, you can take it. You can carry on.
I would once again quote another beautiful proverb, which says, if you don't know where you are going, no road can take you there. And from that point of view, deciding financial goals has to be step number one. If you know where you want to reach, then everything can be planned out. And from that point of view, starting with goal is always a brilliant idea. Rao sir, over to you, sir.
Yeah, I mean, no, I got it. I mean, I want to add there only, once you have a financial goals, there's a clarity in your mind, then you budget accordingly. And these goals are, your powerful why. Once you have the powerful why you want to accomplish, you accomplish. You have a goal to, for example, retirement is the goal most procrastinated goal, or your child education is the most sought after. Once you start investing in our child, you are very emotionally attached to it as an education. Then, you are started investing it with a discipline. This financial goals ingrains into you to have that follow the discipline, and that discipline makes you to accomplish the wealth creation. And financial goals also gives you short-term, long-term, and medium-term goals. And most of the times we plan for the long-term goals and we don't plan for the short-term goals. And when you are not planning for the short-term goals, when you need, at some point of the time, you are not planned for your contingency fund, then you take out your retirement money and you use for the contingency, which is impacting your long-term wealth creation. That's where you need to have a clarity in your short-term, in your medium-term, and your long-term goal, so that every pocket of time you are accomplishing what you want to accomplish, so that your long-term is not getting impacted. These financial goals set a direction for you so that you will not deviate, and it will also ensure the wealth creation, and it also ensures that you enjoy your wealth and experience your life.
Right. And, while having a clear financial goal is important, can you tell us, what are some other things that investors should keep in mind on their journey towards wealth creation? Also, what are some of the mistakes that they should avoid?
Yeah, fantastic. It's a great to introspect, Vishav. If we can look at why people have not accomplished what they have not accomplished is, everyone want to accomplish something. I want to save money, I want to become rich, I want to create wealth. But what happens, the first thing is the procrastination. We procrastinate because that's become, it's a human behavior. I mean, we procrastinate. It is not urgent, and tomorrow let me see. Or I won't understand, then I won't, that's a complicated, let me get somebody, and I'm not getting. This is the first part, don't procrastinate. Second part is, we are little indisciplined, and things will, like earlier I said in the financial goals, if you have a goals, but you have not acted to the goals, then, there is an indiscipline set in. If I have an SIP, I'm automating, my money is not there, then it will be going. Or I can just say every month I will invest, that will not happen. That the discipline of investments, there is no discipline of investments. Second, people do that mistake. Third is, we feel there is a risk, inherent risk, whether it is in a mutual fund or in investing. Especially when it comes to the equity, people feel there is a huge risk. But equities are the one which creates the wealth for you. You need to understand the risk is the important part, and not investing in equities is the biggest mistake we do it. And fourth one is we stay ignorant. A lot of things are changing. I mean, the traditional investments are going away. For example, if I park my money in the bank deposits today, I get 5.5%, 4.5% 1 year deposit, and on that I'll be taxed at 30% or 20%, whichever the tax bracket into. You need to get educated. That's where Outlook Money is contributing a lot to change the outlook of the people towards the money. I really appreciate and congratulate. And the fifth mistake people will do is inadequate diversification. We are over asset class. Somebody invests too much into the real estate, too much into the gold, or too much into the bank deposit. Nothing is too much. You have a right asset allocation. What you need to do is just do the reverse of it. One is set time bound goal, do the diversification right, and right asset allocation, and have a discipline of investment. And the last but not the least is give time for your investment. It's a, don't expect tomorrow morning we will get return. And volatility is something very different. You need to look at it with, you need to undergo. I mean, we have seen in the last 1 year, like 2020, we started with a boomerang. I mean, it's a 43,000 or 42,000 index, and we have seen 27,000 in Sensex. Then again, we have seen today at 46,000. You need to bear with this. And this is where then you can do this. You are not only planning to become wealthy, you become wealthy over a period of time.
Right, absolutely. And you mentioned, 2020 as a roller coaster year for mutual fund investors. We have been talking about, wealth creation, but this was a year which was, kind of, I can't say never before kind of event, but once in a lifetime kind of an event where people saw their wealth drastically deplete in the beginning of the year and then at record levels at the end of the year, right? So today the stock market is at an all-time high, and the market is conducive. But Mr. Trivedi, my question is to you: that what lessons should one take from this 1 year journey in terms of wealth creation? How to ride these tides when things go so up and down, and it's something that you don't witness in every step of your journey, but it's once in a decade kind of an event.
So, you're absolutely right. The year was, absolutely, for want of any other adjective, I'm saying an absolutely fantastic year in terms of if you were to learn some lessons, learn some right lessons. So first lesson is, yes, this may be a pandemic is a once in a lifetime kind of an event, but stock market's behavior is not a once in a lifetime kind of an event. Earlier in one of the webinars, we had discussed this point, that a 30% drop from top, and we saw roughly 38% drop. So 30% or bigger drop from the top. This was the 7th time in last 40 years. So this is definitely not a once in a lifetime event. I mean, 7 times in 40 years, you're talking about roughly 5 to 6 years frequency. So maybe it's a once in a decade event. But if it's a once in a decade event, then it is important to expect it almost every decade. So that's lesson number 1. So this is not unusual. This kind of wild gyrations in stock markets are not unusual. What was unusual was the decade prior to 2020, where it appeared that volatility was just not there in the market. And it looked like markets have matured and there's no volatility, no risk, etc., etc. And suddenly the risk made an entry with a bang. So that's lesson number 1. If that's the case, expect uncertainty, and this kind of uncertainties will come, impossible to predict in advance. And in such a case, when you can't predict, you got to prepare. And preparation is required with 2 objectives in mind. Objective number 1, protection from downside, and preparing to encash on the opportunity that the future offers. So both are required. And from that point of view, I'll go back to one of the answers that Rao sir mentioned. You should do a proper asset allocation. And now what is proper asset allocation? Number 1, start with a contingency fund. If you fear that these kind of events can happen at a higher frequency, then keep a bigger contingency fund. If you are more adventurous and more aggressive and feel that, okay, it's okay, then keep a smaller contingency fund. But don't ignore contingency fund. Then the next step is again a protection from downside, which is where the insurance comes in. Start with health insurance, critical. Next is, well, I'll borrow from the word critical. It is called critical illness insurance. And third is life insurance. Taking these insurance policies is very, very important. Number 3 is where provide for all the servicing of loans. Now, this moratorium which was offered was more like a once in a lifetime event. don't expect those moratoriums to come time and again. And if that's the case, we have to learn to be Atmanirbhar when it comes to servicing our own loans. So provide for the loans also, and then put money in a portfolio that can capture the future growth that India has to offer, and that's where diversified equity mutual funds come in. So that's the way you look at your constructing the portfolio. The way the equity markets have moved, it's another lesson that I've learned. In March, when you only had around 600 cases across the country, the Sensex went down to as low as 25,000 points. And right now, when we are almost in a sniffing distance of 1 crore cases, Sensex is at all-time high. So what does it indicate? I think at in March, at that point in time, the fear was extremely high about how fast the pandemic can spread. So the equity market was actually indicating that fear. And today we are in the hope of a vaccine. We are in the hope of an economic recovery. Pandemic doesn't also seem to be as lethal as it was feared earlier. All things put together, and the equity market, even when we are in a recession, is at all-time high. So equity market generally is a forward indicator. If you keep watching what is happening in the economy and then take a call, then the chances are that equity market would have already priced those events in, and in that process you might end up buying costly and selling cheap. So stay true to your investment plan. Invest across a diversified portfolio. Now, this diversification also means diversification across asset categories. And we already discussed the steps of building a portfolio. So these are the basic lessons that I've learned.
Right. And since you mentioned, now the stock market is at a all-time high. So Mr. Rao, is this a good time to invest in mutual funds? Should one wait for a correction? If somebody already has a lot of has already made a lot of profit, is it time to book that profit? What should mutual fund investors do at this point of time when the market is already at a record high?
Yeah, Vishav, I think this may be bothering many of the people. Those who have not invested, they are waiting for the correction to invest. Those who are invested and staying invested, they are looking at, is it the time to book the profit? And it's like, none of us can time the market rightly. And these are the questions which we have seen in the last 5-6 months, where this is the right time to invest, but market is every time it's going up. I think Peter Lynch who said that, right? It is more money has been lost in waiting for the corrections rather than the money lost in the corrections itself. And I know many of investors calling me at 36, abhi to peak ho gaya. When it comes to 32, I'll start investing. And 36 has become 40, 40 has become 45, and 45 now, projections have become 50. And I'm not very sure whether it will go to 50 or whether it will go to 40. None of us can predict that. And all that what we need to do is stick to your financial goals, have your asset allocation, and depending on your circumstances, booking profit or taking some money out. It's what is that your need, what is your necessity, and what are the other options available to you. You can take a call, and somebody has to enter. I mean, the exit and entry, we cannot time it. And if I want to enter now, I can do my STP. I can stagger I can put my money and do the STP for next 6 months, so that even market corrects, I can get allocated to the units. I can continue my SIPs. And if I want to, for example, your asset allocation skewed 80% to the equity, this is the time to take off some money. Definitely you need to take off and look at that. But if you are underweight with a equity, then it's the time to get into the equity, use the STP route. But none of us can do the timing right. If we can do that right, I think it's a very difficult job. And staying invested is the most important one. And according to your goals, stick to your goals is the most other important one. Don't get too emotional. And if you can remember, in one of the discussions we were discussing in the month of May, a lot of people were redeeming at that time, asking them to don't stop SIP and stay invested, be there, kind of. It was a question we are asking. Imagine the kind of loss people have psychologically felt today when the market is going up. I think my request with investors is evaluate. Each of us are very different. I think Amit ji always says a person before finance is a personal finance. And according to your situation, take the decision. Don't go by the euphoria. At the same time, stay with the STP, stay with the SIPs, and who knows what is the market high? Is this is a high, or maybe 1 year down the line, I have seen some projections. Now we see the projections of 50. When it has gone to 26, we have seen the projections of 20. Either side, projections keeps coming in. What you need to project is stay sticking to your goal is the most important one.
Right, absolutely. And when we talk about these kind of market situations, these days, one specific type of mutual funds called index funds are also coming up in a big way as an alternative to actively managed funds, especially when there was this overall correction in the index rather than stock based corrections, and when the overall index is rising. So instead of picking stocks and investing in specific sectors, a lot of people are preferring index funds. So can you tell us, how these funds are different, and do they serve as a better alternative, or should one still go ahead with, actively managed funds?
Yeah, thank you, Vishal. I think this is the debate happens over decades, like, which is an active fund is right or index fund is right. It's all choice we can make it. Sometimes active fund may give a higher return, and index fund is in replicating the economy. If you are taking the Nifty 50 kind of it, then you can always look at. But one thing is sure, index funds will come with a low cost. That much is definitely there. And globally, index funds are more popular. And for you, if you feel, yeah, I mean, we call it a passive, because the active fund is, always churning the portfolio and getting it, and fund manager is getting that extra alpha because of the active, what is churning it. Index fund goes as with the flow with the economy, and the people need to choose it. I mean, nothing wrong in choosing an index fund, and which index fund you are choosing, what is the reason for which you are choosing, it's fine. And it's one is, if it's a lower expenses, then that is the reason you are coming. It's a fantastic thing to be in index fund. But if you want to have a diversified equity fund, you expect to anticipate more returns, come to the diversified equity fund. And now you have a multi-cap, now you have a flexi cap, now you have a small cap and mid cap, depending on the choice you can invest. And index funds and ETFs are going to be playing a major role as we go forward, no doubt of it. And but I'm not saying that, it will, whether active funds will underperform, I'm not very sure. Still, there is a huge scope for the fund managers to give higher return, higher alpha with the active funds. But investors who want to not to take any risk, and they want to go with the economy, they can choose always index funds.
Right. Thank you so much. Now coming back to the current market situation, my next question is for Mr. Trivedi. Mr. Trivedi, in this market situation, what kind of portfolio readjustment can one make in such a scenario when markets are at an all-time high? Mr. Rao has already shared his views. I would like you to tell us what you think. Should there be any kind of portfolio readjustment, and on what basis and what levels?
Yeah. So first of all, let's divide this question into two parts, because you mentioned about portfolio readjustment. It is presupposing that there was a portfolio which was properly adjusted. So let's look at two parts. One, where the portfolio was properly constructed based on one's requirements and situation, which was already done. And second is where either there was no portfolio constructed, or the portfolio which was constructed was randomly in a haphazard manner done. So we'll divide it into two parts. And I'm not being judgmental of anybody, but one has not taken into consideration one's goals, financial situations, and risk profile, then I'll call that portfolio as a haphazardly constructed portfolio. So that's what I'm saying. In the first case, let the financial plan or the investment plan dictate if there are any adjustments required. So take, for example, if I started with a portfolio based on my own unique situation and my goals and my risk profile, if I started with a portfolio which was, let's say, for a particular goal, 60% into equity and 40% into fixed income. And today, when I look at that portfolio, if equity has gone up to, let's say, 65%, which is, easier assumption to make, given that equity markets are at such levels. So if it's gone to 65%, then I take 5% out of equity and put it into fixed income, so that my portfolio is rebalanced to 60% and 40% once again. That's what I would do. However, just look at a situation. If somebody had done this rebalancing way back in March, the chances are that this person would have added to equity, and then that equity has shot up in last 8-9 months. So today the allocation would have really gone out of the balance, and rebalancing would be warranted. If somebody had not done rebalancing in March, then the chances are that a January portfolio 60-40 might be closer to 60-40 even now, because fixed income also has gone up and equity is also marginally moved up from January levels. So look at the portfolio and then let the portfolio tell you. It's simply about rebalancing back to the original percentages or the target percentages. So that's the well-designed, well-constructed portfolio. The other portfolio, I would say, take help of a financial advisor, go to a mutual fund distributor, and let them assess your situation, because you've not done it so far. I'm assuming that you are not able to do it so far, and to that extent, take help, take professional help. A good mutual fund distributor or an investment advisor should be able to guide you and help you construct a portfolio in line with your requirement, which is suitable to your requirement. And that advisor, looking at your unique situation, would give you a unique solution. Personal finance, Mr. Rao just mentioned some time back, is a subject where personal always comes before finance. So understand that personal bit first, and then the portfolio will follow.
Right. And on similar lines to Mr. Rao, my question is, what are 1 or 2 reflections of 2020 which you feel one need to take forward and do course correction for 2021 for managing their personal finance? Mr. Rao.
Thanks, Vishal. I mean, the first thing is to take care of your contingency fund. I think 2020 is a year of contingencies. It's a year of emergencies. It has helped all of us to understand, like, you need to plan for your contingencies. I think you can't predict the future. You need to prepare and have contingency. Second is your health is the foremost important thing. Take care of your health. And with that, on the financial terms, take care of your health insurance. Third is, your important goals in the life. It cannot go into haywire when things are happening like that. We need to plan for your goals very appropriately and stick to that discipline of sticking to those goals. And the last but not the least, income, what we get today is not always guaranteed. How you can plan for that, you can't get guarantee how you get, there were job losses, there was a salary cuts, and now things are looking better. But imagine at that point of the time, people have undergone the agony. And please be prepared. I think, prepare a contingency fund, have your financial planning in place, and have a backup plan. That's the most important plan. It's have a well-defined goals, but at the same time, you need to have a backup plan. If something is not going right, what is that I can do? When 2020 comes, financial plan along with a backup plan.
Right. Thank you so much. We have a question from the audience. Mr. Rohit Verma from Noida is asking, do insurance-linked investment give similar returns to long-term, like 15 years, as mutual funds? Are they better since they provide insurance cover as well? One of his friends suggested to him that he should take term cover for insurance and then invest in mutual funds for returns. He's asking, is that a better strategy, or should he go with insurance-linked investment?
So I'll take that, Vishal. Incidentally, understand the basic difference between insurance and investment. Insurance is protection against certain risks, and investment is where you take certain risks. So why do you want to mix 2 products where one is to protect against risk and the other is to take risk? It's always advisable to keep the 2 separate. Number 2, if you combine the 2, the other problem is when the investment portfolio does not perform up to your expectations, you can't get out of that product and buy another, because you'll lose out the insurance cover. And if your age has advanced, then the chances are that the insurance cover becomes costlier, or if the health condition doesn't allow, you will not even get life insurance cover. That's possible. So to that extent, keep the term insurance plan and an investment portfolio separately. Don't combine the 2. There are enough number of mathematical tables which can compare which one is cheaper or better, etc., etc. But in many cases, there are assumptions. So if you go and dig deeper and understand the assumptions, then only it will be fair to make a fair to make a statement. There cannot be a generalized statement. So that's how I would say keep both separate.
Right. Thank you for your answer. One more question we'll take from audience. Mr. Karnam Prabhakar Rao from Bengaluru. He asks, how to select good mutual fund schemes? What factors should we consider before selecting the right AMC and the right scheme and right option?
Yeah, so that's a tough one to answer in very short, because typically I run a training program on this subject, and it is 8 to 9 hours workshop. So that's why I'm saying it's tough to answer in very brief. But it's critical. So first of all, always start with the asset category that you want to invest in. And that asset category is decided based on the unique situation. We talked about asset allocation. That asset allocation is nothing but how do you divide your money across various asset categories. So that's where you start with asset categories. Now, within those asset categories, there are multiple options available. So there are equity funds, debt funds, liquid funds, gold funds, depending on how much you need to invest, and then go to the AMC level, and of course then the scheme level. But even within the AMC, you start with an AMC where you are reasonably sure of, number one, and again it depends on your comfort. There are a few subjective factors, so that's why I can't really put it in an absolute black and white. But generally look at reputation of the AMC in terms of reasonably consistent performance across various schemes, a longer stay in the business. Also, at some point in time, you may want to switch from one fund to the other. If that is a requirement, then look at an AMC which also offers you multiple choices across various schemes. So these are a few things that you look at. Then comes the people within the asset management company. Longer the stay that the fund management team has with the asset management company, and longer the fund managers have been managing the respective portfolios, generally it gives you a better idea of how that individual and how that group has been managing money. These details are available in the scheme documents, the scheme information document and statement of additional information, which are publicly available. You can go to the AMC's website and find it. So look at the longer stay is generally a better idea. It gives you a better indicator. So that's as far as the AMC selection is concerned. And then within that, now you look at various mutual fund schemes from the point of view of which scheme is taking higher risks within the category. Depending on your profile, if you are an aggressive investor, take the schemes which are taking higher risk. If you are conservative, go with conservative portfolios. And for that, a very simple thumb rule kind of indicator is the riskometer, which SEBI has made mandatory, which is to be published in each scheme's offer document and the fact sheet. So that could be a good starting point. But beyond that, I think you may need to take somebody's help to understand the individual scheme's characteristics. What I mentioned just now would help you prepare a short list of schemes. It does not really give you the final answer.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much for an elaborate answer to a question which needs an elaborate answer. Before we conclude, I have this one last question for both of you. What would be one lesson you would want our viewers to take away from today's conversation? So both of you, I would like your thoughts on this.
Amit, you can go.
Okay, so first of all, let's understand that this was an extremely sort of unusual kind of a year for the whole humanity. For more than half the year, we were locked down in the houses, and this is something that none of us has witnessed in our lifetime. Number two, that may be looked at in a negative manner, but the positive side is we could spend a lot of time with our families. We understood the importance of some of the basics like health, the basics like maintaining relationships, maintaining that positive frame of mind. So while there were hardships, there were some positive lessons as well. And the way we saw that the markets came down and went up, that also I think was a good positive indicator of how resilient we are as a country and how resilient we are as an economy. So from that point of view, I have good hopes for the time to come, which means what we've been through, going forward, the times are likely to be easier than 2020. So that's number one. Having said that, let's not forget the lessons that we have learned. Keep flexibility in the approach, and let's only stick to the investments. Keep flexibility in your approach, and that also means consider investments where liquidity is high. There are certain avenues where your money gets stuck. Mr. Rao mentioned that in the earlier part of April and May, the early days of lockdown, just imagine if somebody needed liquidity and had only investments in real estate. Where do you go and sell that? You have a very large investment in certain assets. The chances are that is appreciated, but you don't have liquidity. What some finance experts call it being asset rich and cash poor. So we remain flexible as much as possible. That's lesson number one. Number two, prepare a plan for your financial future and have a discipline to stick to that plan. And that discipline is extremely critical. So that's all I would say. And beyond that, I would wish everybody a great 2021 and beyond.
Mr. Rao.
Yeah, I think, year 2020, it's like in life, 2020 is always for us 2020 cricket. And incidentally, life is a marathon, it's not a sprint. And 2020, like a 2020 cricket, it has come and gone. But these experiences will live us for long. And let us take these lessons. I think some of these lessons, when we are, God is kind enough to teach us these lessons. We need to be prudent on our money, and we need to take care of our health. And we need to take, it's like, earlier me, and now that has converted to we. When it comes to COVID, like, I should not get infected means my neighbor should not get infected. Now I need to think I need to be rich and my neighbor need to be rich. That's the way we can change our mindset in 2021. Let us prosper together and let us plan it in such a way. Let us prudent, let us be balanced, and let us invest it wisely and invest it wisely, either our time or our money or our emotions. And then make 2021 a better year. And these learnings of 2020, this should be a stepping stone for us to make 21 a better year. And I wish 21 could be a wonderful year. 21 should pave way for the next decade. And we look for India as a glorious decade ahead for Indian economy and world per se. And I'm sure let us be part of that wealth creation for the nation and wealth creation for ourselves. And to put it, today's topic is a wealth creation. Let us all think wealthy. Let us all get wealthy. Or some of us who are already wealthy, let us become more wealthier. And becoming wealthier is easier, but staying wealthier is most difficult. Let us also stay wealthier. And then last but not the least, sharing the wealth is also equally important. And let us make that a part of our life, and so that we can serve the larger part of the society. And let us change the entire outlook on the money, the way we live. I think that's where with Outlook Money with is.
Right. Thank you so much. That is very well said. That's it for us today. I think it was a wonderful session. You both gave us some really valuable insights, and I think our viewers would have a better idea about how to leverage mutual funds to create wealth for themselves and their families in the long term. And we would be back next year. Happy New Year to all of you in advance. And our next episode will come in 2021, which, as Mr. Rao said, would be a wonderful year. And that's what we hope. And yeah, we'll be back. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Thanks.